Recording in progress.
Welcome, everyone. We're about to get started. It is 7 o'clock. This is an irregularly scheduled meeting of the Land Use Committee. It's our final meeting of the year, which is very exciting to some of us. I'm Andrea Kelly. I'm the chair. With us here in the chamber from Ward 1, we have Allison Leary. From Ward 2, we have Tariq Lucas. I'm from Ward 3. From Ward 4, we have Councillor Randy Block. From Ward 5, online on Zoom, we have Andrea Downs. From Ward 6, Alan Lobovitz. And from Ward 8, Stephen Farrell sitting in John Oliver's seat. We have some helpful staff with us tonight. Also online, I'll say we have Councillor Maliki, who's not on the committee, but joining us, and Councillor-elect Jacob Silber. The staff from planning, we have Sandra Berman, Kat Kemet, and Katie Wewell. We have our very handy clerk, Cassidy Flynn, and we have Jonah Temple from the Law Department. We only have 3 items before us tonight. Dare I say this might be a quicker night than many, just in case I don't want to jinx it. The first item we have is a request to withdraw without prejudice for docket number 304-25, which is a request to allow ground floor residential 4 stories to exceed height and associated parking waivers at 1100-1102 Beacon Street. I do see the petitioner online. Mr. Callahan, do you want to add anything to that, or would you just like us to vote on it? She's muting you. There you go, if you wanted to say anything.
Chairwoman. No, you can vote. I mean, we appreciate the Land Use Committee's feedback in the last meeting, and, we're going to go back and do some more homework and be back early next year with a plan that we hope is favorable to everybody. So thank you.
Great. We like to hear that sort of thing, like taking input and coming back with a hopefully more filled out proposal. So thank you. Are there any comments for anybody in the committee want to make, or would somebody like to make a motion to accept this request? It is Ward 6, Councillor Lobovitz. Sorry, right in the middle of a bite.
I move to accept the applicant's withdrawal. Thank you.
Great. We can do this on a voice vote. All in favor of accepting the request to withdraw without prejudice, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Good luck. We'll see you again next term, Mr. Callahan.
Great, thank you.
Okay, our next item is number 219-25, which is a request for a special permit to allow 4 attached single-family dwellings, to waive the side and rear setback requirements, and to allow tandem parking at 11 Parsons Street. I see Mr. Morris at the microphone, ready to speak on behalf of the petitioner. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Terry Morris, and I'm an attorney with offices at 57 Elm Road in Newton, and I'm here representing the owner of the property, Mr. Tom Zhu. Madam Chair, with me this evening also is my team member, Trevor O'Leary, who will be running the presentation as I speak. We're pleased to be able to come back to you and present a set of plans that we believe are far superior to the original plans presented several months ago. After meeting with the neighbors and immediate abutters early on, it was apparent that 4 units for the site was perhaps too many. And so we had committed at that time to reducing the project to 3 units. The reason why it's taken us so much time to get back to you is because this property is also governed by the Conservation Commission, since with its proximity to the brook. And the matter was heard before it even came to land use consideration. It was subject to an order of conditions, and we made every attempt, and I think successfully so, to redesign the project for 3 units and maintain compliance with all of the previously established conditions set by the Conservation Commission. Go to the next slide, please. Trevor, next slide, please. What you see here is an area map. Outlined in green is showing the site. It's actually one of the largest sites in the neighborhood. As you can see, it's an L shape. And one of the interesting features of this particular view is the proximity of the existing house to the lot line. It is actually 7.5 feet from the lot line, and from the aerial view, looks to be quite close. I think that when the property was originally built, I speculate that it was situated that close to the lot line because a large portion of the lot at the southwest portion of the site is within the wetlands area. As you will see, next slide, please. Here's an aerial view. Gives you a little more substance than the neighborhood area map. But you can see with the red, I hope you can see the red circle there, identifies the location of the existing house. And you see the house is heavily wooded with a very mature stand of trees around the entire perimeter. What's interesting is, and I'm sure you will hear later this evening from, as I gather from at least one communication that you may have received regarding the project, there will be concern addressed about the proximity of the proposed house next, as it may be impacted by the property located to the north, which is actually on Watertown Street with an address of 826, 828. It should be noted, and if you go back to the area map, Trevor, you can see the significant, the property on Watertown Street, which has its frontage there, and there's a significant setback difference between the two buildings. Go back to the aerial view, please. And that certainly is, that you can see that the stand of trees that separates the property and is located primarily along the property line represents a significant buffer to any potential impact that may be seen or speculated to that property. To the contrary, we think that this plan addresses significant issues raised by our neighbors with special attention to our immediate abutters to the west on Cross Street. The issues involved, Trevor, next slide, please. Property is located in multi-residence 1 zone, which allows single-family attached by special permit. As we know, the dimensional requirements for attached dwellings are set at 25 feet front, side, and rear. And as I have often stated in the past, those setbacks were established at a time when attached dwellings were certainly of a different building prototype than they are today. It harkens back to the period in the 60s when it was first introduced into the ordinance, when there was great emphasis on maintaining greater setbacks because of the FAR, believe it or not, at that time, allowable was 0.75. But nonetheless, we are pleased to report that among the issues, one of the most significant issues was the setback of the building in the rear. This legend before you shows how the property basically compares with the required setbacks. We increased the setback in the rear, which originally was proposed at 16 or 17 feet. We increased that to 26.1 so that it now complies and exceeds with the 25 requirement at the closest point. But as you will see when we get into the site plan, actually, if we can go that now and come back, Trevor. You can see that the rear lot line is orthogonal to Parsons Street, so that the buildings is located, the closest point to the building, as you can see in the corner, is actually 26.1, whereas as the building rotates further away south, that setback from that lot line increases to 36.3 feet. Back to the chart, please. Um, With respect to the other, the plan also compares favorably with the density dimensional standards in the ordinance. The lot coverage of 20.7% is well below the 30% allowable for single and two-family homes, and even more than the more rigid 25% for single-family attached dwellings. The open spaces at 72.5% exceeds the 50% for single-family homes. The front setback, while at 21.2, does not comply with the 25-foot requirement. Nonetheless, it is online with the property next door at 19 Parsons Street. And more importantly, that is the exact setback of the present house. So the present house was built with a 7.5-yard setback from the side, and it was built at 20, it was set back at 21.2 when it was first built. With removal of the fourth unit and the relocation of the single unit, we're now able to save a grouping of 6 to 7 mature trees in the northwest corner. Could we go to that slide, please, Trevor? This is the civil plan. I think if we go to the next plan, you'll have a greater visual, be able to understand what we're talking about. You can see each of those circles represents significant trees along the perimeter and at the rear. You see at the rear, there are 4 to 6 trees that in our original plan were proposed to be removed. They are now, because we have moved the building forward and reduced the number of units, all of those trees will be preserved. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry, while we have that slide up, go back. Okay. So as I said, we're retaining existing trees. The buildings are aligned as I have described, with building 2 having been relocated. And both buildings are compliant with the old side yard setback. Next screen, please. Mitigation planting plan. We were pleased to receive a favorable analysis of the project from the planning department memo. There was, however, at one point made about the planting plan. The planting plan in this case was governed by the jurisdiction of the the Conservation Commission, which required a planting plan, which you see in front of you. That planting plan, which was originally uploaded showing a 4-unit plan, was replaced most recently once I saw that request was made in the planning department memo with this plan. The only difference between these plans is actually the planting quantity, size, and species are unchanged from the original plan that was submitted on March 17th. The planting locations were split to include the area to the southwest adjacent to 12 Cross Street. Those are the only changes to this plan. No change in quantity, its species, and size. Next slide, please. So the project impact, as I said, there are only actually 3 trees to be removed, and 2 of those trees, it was noted, were removed because of they were within the jurisdiction of the wetlands area, and that's noted on the landscape plan, actually. There is robust planting, as was shown by the area view on the southern side of the lot. The relation of the buildings to the environment, the same orientation and location of the existing building, and the driveway is also located in the same place as it was originally. There is open space now at the front, but more importantly at the rear of the property. Surface water drainage. This site actually, the elevation on the site rises as you approach Watertown Street. As a result, the present stormwater conditions actually flow downward south. One of the advantages of this project is that there is a full surface water drainage system established below grade to control the water flow entirely on this site. Utility services, all utility services will be installed underground. Special features. We have bike storage, which is provided within the garages, and individual trash is provided within the garages as well. At this point, I am going to turn the microphone over to my colleague, Mr. Trevor O'Leary, who will comment on some of the more relevant petitions as to the architectural plans and materials and so forth. Trevor?
Sure. Thank you very much. Just to kind of hit on a few of the topics also on this list as well. From a safety standpoint on this project, both of these buildings will be code compliant. The rear building, due to the fact that it's more than 150 feet from the street, will be a sprinkled building in the back portion of this lot. We feel the building has been designed with gable roofs facing the street, which is consistent with the neighboring buildings as well as the existing context in the neighborhood. The majority of the neighborhood is a mix of single family and small multifamily developments, which in this case, the proposed development will provide a look and feel of a single family on the street, with the front unit being forward facing towards Parsons Street. From a sustainability standpoint, this will be a specialized stretch code compliant building. It's going to be an all electric building. Each of the garages will be EV ready, and the roofs here will be solar ready. As we look at the building, the materials that we're providing are going to be more of a traditional style materials. As mentioned, we can see the double gable roofs that are facing the street, and the pitched roof for above the second story, all of which are consistent with the standard New England architecture. The roof will be asphalt shingles with black metal accents. Siding will be a composite James Hardie or similar style siding. Trim will be a painted composite material, all of which will hold up over time and maintain the finished look of the building. Windows are going to be a Pella style with a black frame, and then we'll have aluminum black gutters on the house. And as you can see here, just another rendering view of the building along the driveway side to provide a perspective on the lot. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
With that presentation, Madam Chair, we're available for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Morrison, Mr. O'Leary. Before we go to the public hearing part, we'll hear from the planning department.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sunray Berman here. I'm going to go ahead and see if I could share my screen. I might need to ask the petitioner. There we go. Okay, bear with me as I pull up presentation. Okay. All right. So again, this is a petition that's returning to us for special permit site plan approval, petition number 219-25, to allow 3 attached single-family dwellings to waive the front and side setback requirements. And this is again coming back to us from the July 22nd public hearing. So you'll see here from the aerial map, and as Mr. Morris already discussed, the parcel is located between Watertown Street to the north and Washington Street to the south, right off of Parsons Street right here. The subject property consists of an oversized 17,678 square foot lot with an irregular L-shaped configuration and a multi-residence 1 district. The property does abut Cheesecake Brook to the south. It is improved with a single-family dwelling that was constructed in 1874. The neighborhood is primarily residential with a mix of single, 2-family, and multi-family dwellings. And the subject property is just south of Watertown Street with a single residence 3 district further north. The property is also north of Watertown Street with a business 2 and multi-residence 3 districts to the south of the subject property. In terms of zoning relief, the petitioner is seeking relief to allow the use of a single-family attached use in an MR1 district, as well as relief for the required front and side setbacks. In terms of projects updates since the first public hearing, there's a reduction in the property's density from 4 to 3 units, with 2 units in Building 1 and 1 unit in Building 2. There's a reduction in the amount of relief requested. The petitioner has reconfigured and reduced the number of parking stalls from a total of 8 tandem stalls to 4 single-row stalls and 2 tandem stalls that are dimensionally compliant, removing the requirement for tandem stall relief. The relocation of Building 2 as well also brings the proposal into compliance with the rear setback, as Mr. Morris mentioned, which no longer requires relief. And finally, the petitioner has added the need for relief for the front setback of Building 1, which faces Parsons Street, proposing 21 feet to the front lot line where 25 feet is the minimum required. And this is due to the fact that they are proposing a new use. Some criteria that the council should consider is our 4 standard special permit criteria, that the site is an appropriate location for the proposed 3 single-family attached residential development with the reduced front and side setbacks. The proposed 3 single-family attached residential development as designed will not adversely affect the neighborhood, that there will not be a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians, and finally, that access to sites over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved. In terms of the planning's analysis, we note that the proposed project is an appropriate use for the location, which is nearby public transportation, a grocery store, and other amenities. The petitioner has reduced the density of the project from 4 units to 3 units and relocated Building 2 closer to the rear of Building 1 to bring the project into compliance with the rear setback, which no longer requires relief. Due to the irregular shape of the lot and its proximity to Cheesecake Brook's protected riverfront area, the proposed placement of both Buildings 1 and 2 is constrained, specifically impacting the front and side setbacks on the northwestern lot line. The petitioner has reconfigured parking stalls to be dimensionally compliant and reduce the total number of parking stalls from 8 to 6 stalls, with only 2 stalls in a tandem formation, improving the overall volume and maneuverability of the vehicles on site. And finally, planning notes that the project is in conformance with both massing and abutting residential uses in the surrounding MR1 district with a mix of housing types and sizes. That concludes the planning presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Berman. We're going to move into the public hearing part, but before we do that, I'd quickly like to mention that we've been joined by President Laredo, so we have a full complement of all Land Use Committee members tonight. And on Zoom, we've been joined by a few other counselors. I saw Maria Greenberg is here, John Oliver, and I thought I saw Pam Wright at one point. Yes, I see Pam Wright, and this project is in her ward as well as in Malachi's ward and mine. Are there any members of the public in the chamber who would like to speak to this? And if so, just come forward to that microphone. Come forward to right there, to the microphone. There's a little button at the base of the black thing that you can turn on.
Okay. So good evening, councilors of the board and neighbors. So my name is Winnie. I live directly to the north and the west of 11 Parsons Street.
What's your address?
826 Waterton Street.
Thank you.
So I'm here to express my strong concern regarding the developer's request to reduce the rear and the north side setback for a proposed multi-unit project. Sorry, I just got my teeth took out, still feel numb and swollen. So sorry. So as an immediate neighbor on the northwest side, my property share not only a yard boundary with 11 Parsons Street, but also include a historical carriage house located in the southwest corner of my lot. So my home was built in 1890, and the existing structure, the 11 Parsons, was built around 1900. 10 years later, the current house at 11 Parsons is a single-family home designed in 3 gradually lower and smaller sections. The tallest from portion north face the north-south, unlike my tree and open yard. So the step-down design clearly reflects intentional respect of the adjacent home and the need for safe distance, privacy, protection, and cross sunlight. However, the newly proposed design completely changed the long-standing relationship according to the plans presented to us. So the third unit of the new development is pushed significantly close to my southern property line and sits much farther forward than the current building. It no longer aligns with the existing north facade and extend towards my property line on the north side. So the distance between this new third unit and my historical carriage house become extremely so small. So you can see from the picture, it just showed there's a red dot. You can see all this old house, but you didn't say the property on my lot is a carriage house is so close. And he said if we build the third one must be very high and all surrounded. So my lot is inside. However, the new proposed design completely changed that one. So the creative several serious problem. The first is the fire safety concerns to my carriage house that increase the risk. And the second is severely compromise the privacy. The third, it harmed the natural lights. And the third unit, you can say the 3-unit design moves forward to propose. My yard would be surrounded on 3 sides by buildings. The east side is already enclosed by tall tree. That's face the Parson Street. As the sun moves from the east to the west, my yard would fall into shadow for nearly the entire day and my carriage house. It's not minor
Winnie,
impact.
excuse me, I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second. I should have pointed out to you that there was a timer on the screen that would count you down to 3 minutes.
Yeah.
So if you could wrap up.
Yeah, I would finish in 1 sentence. Give me 1 sentence. So my yard will fall into a shadow. So I want to emphasize we fully respect the responsible development, but the new construction must consider neighborhood safety, environment condition, and the basic living needs of the existing residents. It cannot just priority private profit at the expense of surrounding community. So for this reason, I cannot support the current 3-unit design, nor the request reduce the rear and especially north side setback. Even the setbacks not align with the original one. It's far move forward to my carriage house. So we kindly ask our board require plan that respect the character of the neighborhood and the right of the long-standing resident.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We definitely heard your point. Appreciate it. Thank you for speaking. Anyone else in the audience? Come forward, please, right up to the microphone. Again, just give us your name and address, and you'll see there's a little 3-minute countdown.
Sure. My name is Zhao Li. So I'm living in 12 Cross Street.
On Cross Street?
Yeah, 12 Cross Street.
12 Cross Street.
Yes. So I'm here today to express serious concerns of us and shared by many neighbors regarding this proposed development. After the last hearing, the neighbors discussed with the builder to revise the project from 2-family 4 units to 1-family 2 units plan. Several months have passed since then, yet change has been minimal and not in the direction we clearly communicated. After the hearing, the builder notified us of a neighborhood meeting with only a few hours' notice. This was extremely disrespectful of residents who have jobs, families, and responsibilities. Thank you to Andrea for helping us communicate to reschedule the community meeting. And during that meeting, neighbors again made it clear that we support a smaller 1-family 2 units building, which already double to the size of the family they have right now. And the builder returned with a plan of 3 units, and essentially similar to the large size and before. And the project is still tall, still massive, and still out of scale with the neighborhood. Later, the builder's lawyer sent us another version plan that appeared smaller and first. After reviewing it carefully, we realized that much of the building was drawn using dotted lines, and this made it look visually reduced, when in reality, the size and footprint had not genuinely decreased. This felt misleading for many of us. Also, the lawyer sent different emails to different neighbors, and In the email, the lawyer, Ms. Morris, notified us the hearing was on September 2nd. But none of us received can find official city notice. And none of us received the required official notice from city 2 weeks before this hearing, which created even more confusing. We need a clarification. Why were incorrect hearing dates sent by the builder's lawyer? Also, why did the official city notice from second hearing never arrive to the neighborhood? After multiple rounds of inconsistent communication, unclear plans, the neighbors no longer feel builder is acting in good faith. Beyond communication concerns, the physical impact of this project is significant. A large footprint and tall structure in this location will greatly reduce the limited sunlight of our home recently already received. Many of us barely get direct sun because of the existing trees. A tall new building will block a little daylight we have. Sunlight is essential for health, mental well-being, and for our children growing up in this neighborhood.
And thank you. If you could slowly wrap up to your little
Sure.
3. Go ahead.
They are also very concerned about flooding. Our property sit in lower ground near wetlands. If the builder install a drainage system, if it fails or it's insufficient, our basement will be flooded. By the time we discover problem, it will be too late. This is a risk we cannot accept. Finally, last year, builder permit dumping introduced multiple invasive plant species next to our property, not just Japanese knotweed, but several others. This caused real harm. I personally experienced the allergy reaction since last September, and ended up in the emergency room this September. This is not just landscaping issue, also it's a health concern.
Thank you.
We won't work on no neighborhood. We are not against development, but we cannot support project that threaten our sunlight, our safety, our environment, and our quality of life. We ask the council to protect our residents who already live here and ensure that development in our neighborhood is responsible, respectful, and honest. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else who'd like to come forward, please? And again, you probably don't have time to prepare this ahead, but generally it's for 3 minutes.
Right.
Okay.
3 minutes. Good evening, everyone in the room and online. It is on. Oh, yes, thank you. Yes.
Your name and address.
My name is Ru Xue, and I live in 10 Cross Street, one of the house surrounding the 11 Parsons house. And I appreciate builders' effort by cutting down from the 4 units to 3 units. But my original concerns with the 4 units still remains because when we look at the map, a big portion of the area is actually wetland protection area, which means we cannot put grills or whatever like our daily amusement into that area. And a lot of the neighborhood surrounding that house, we all have kids. I assume in the future, all those units will have may have kids. So with so many units building on a limited area, I just think the life quality and also the issues raised from parking and noise in that area is still concerning. So yeah, I will wrap it up. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the chamber who would like to speak? Are there any people on Zoom virtually who would like to make a public comment or ask a question? I don't see any hands up, but if, yes. I believe it said tech. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I'm Tim Techler. I live at 40 Cross Street. I'm an architect and I've lived here for 30 years. I've been participating in some of the meetings that the developer has set up with the neighbors, and definitely also want to go on record as appreciative of their reducing it in size from the 4-unit to 3-unit. And also the increase in setback to the rear, because I think it really helps the neighbors on the west side there. One thing though is that the overall massing of the project hasn't changed that much from a 4-unit to a 3-unit. They just made unit 3 quite large, almost the size of the original 2 that were back there. If I'd like to boil it down to this, if it were possible for the developer and the council to be flexible on the side setback of the rear building, that is unit 3. I think there is a concern with the neighbor next door, Winnie's property at 826 Watertown Street, does have a carriage house back there, and these buildings would be, I would say, 12, less than 15 apart. They'd be 12 feet apart, and it'd be good for you all to look at the GIS plan or the tax assessor's plan at the figure ground of these buildings, the way they sit. If the side setback on building 3 could be double what they're asking, in the range of 15, 20 feet, it would be so much better for the light quality of the adjacent properties, as well as the apparent kind of density. We understand that this neighborhood is a multifamily. It's a big lot, although a lot of it is not usable from the standpoint of the conservation. But I'd also like to say that the architect did a nice job in rendering this time. These are the best renderings that I've seen yet of the whole project, but also shows that rear building number 3, unit 3, is quite large. I urge you all to compare it to the buildings next door, and I thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Techler. With 3 seconds to spare. Tracy Hatch.
Hi, sorry, I'm just getting my unmuting on. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So I'm at 19 Parsons Street. I am like right obviously next door to 11 Parsons. Like everybody has said, you know, I've really appreciated the architect and lawyers, you know, really meeting with us and working in hearing our concerns. My concerns are what everybody has already said around the conservation land behind me. You know, obviously that can't be developed, but you know, are people going to be, you know, using that space? I'm also worried about flooding. Our basement gets flooded routinely. So like, is a building getting built to that size going to impact the flooding in an already flood zone, as well as parking? So parking on Parsons Street, if you're, I know that they have parking, but like if they're doing, if people park on the street, you know, how that will impact us. It's very narrow to get in and out of our driveway if someone's parked on the street. So that's just kind of our concerns around this building and a building of that size.
Thank you, Ms. Hatch. Anybody else on Zoom or in the chamber would like to speak on this? I don't see any hands, so we will take this into committee. Are there any committee members who would like to speak on this right now? Councillor Lucas.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you everyone from the neighborhood who has spoken tonight. And good evening to you, Mr. Morris. Um, I have several questions for you, as you can imagine. Um, before we get into the issues that were brought up by, I think, all of the neighbors, I just want to briefly talk about stormwater because I know this project has changed. I just want to verify that it's still the same stormwater system to retain water on site. Have there been any changes to that?
I believe it's substantially the same as it was when it was presented. I would ask, we have our hydrologist, our Conservation Commission member of our team, John Rockwood. I did see him on screen before. I don't know if he's still here.
What's the last name?
John Rockwood.
Rockwood. I did see him on here.
Oh, he is. John, you carry the bigger load in interacting with the Conservation Commission over how these plans were formulated. Is there anything you might add to answer Councilor Lucas's question about stormwater?
Under the Conservation Commission filing, stormwater materials are provided. The stormwater system will be reviewed by engineering when it goes to permitting through the engineering and ISD. And it will be reviewed for compliance with the Newton ordinance relative to stormwater. The roof and driveways are proposed to go into the infiltration system, and they've been properly sized based upon the revised plan. With regard to other matters, the area behind the Hatches property is part of a mitigation area, and passive activities are allowed, such as walking, but it's essentially a planting area to mitigate for the work proposed within the riverfront area. And the houses have been sited where they're sited to address work within the riverfront area on the property. And the property actually is being graded to provide significant additional flood storage on the site compared to the existing condition, and actually even compared to the previous 4-unit project. So stormwater will be addressed through an infiltration system. So roof and driveway runoff go to that. All the car storage is in garages or under the building, and the driveway simply provides access to those. And again, everything is located to comply with the Wetlands Protection Act and those requirements. We've submitted a minor modification to the Conservation Commission with this plan, and staff comments indicate that there's no concerns with this plan relative to conservation. It complies with all requirements under the Wetlands Protection Act and the Newton floodplain ordinances. And they provided a recommendation that the commission approve the minor modification.
Thank you, John. Also part of the team, we have our representative Spruan Engineering, our civil firm, Mr. Hideki Montero, is also on screen. Hideki, are you there, co-host? If you would, is there anything you want to add to what John had said about the groundwater, or actually expand upon how the groundwater is being handled?
Hi, good evening. Well, John has already said it all, basically. Besides that, this plan has also been improved with an additional infiltration system for the sump pumps that is located at the rear of the second building. That wasn't included in the previous plan because that came from a recent comment we have been receiving from the city. But basically, John, besides that, John says it all. Thank you.
Thank you, Hideki. I hope that answers your question, Councilor.
Yes, it does. Thank you. And just to verify, right now, there is no stormwater management system on site. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, thank you. Because I think this public hearing was first initially opened in the summer. And I was just wondering, how have the community meetings gone? Can you talk about that, please?
I think that this plan represents our best effort to address the concerns that were articulated on 2 occasions when we met with the members during that period.
Okay.
I'm
I want to talk about the by right alternative.
Right.
So the by right alternative in the MR zone is a two-family home. I think a little over 8,000 square feet of livable area. Does that sound right to you?
That is correct. As you
All right.
know, the FAR governs the volume of the buildings. The allowable FAR is 0.46 and we're at 0.45 and we're at 0.46. That difference is minimal. You're looking at a two-family house consisting of approximately 8,000 square feet.
Yeah.
That's correct.
And the setbacks for the by right,
7.5.
7.5 on all sides.
7.5, 15 in the back, 7.5 on the sides.
And where are you right now on the side closest to the homes on Watertown?
Correct.
No, I'm asking you.
On the north edge, that's correct.
No, I'm asking you, what is the setback?
8.8 at one point, 8.2 at the other.
All right, and you said the by right is 7.5?
By right is 7.5. That's
All right.
correct.
And how close is that carriage house? Because one of the neighbors mentioned a carriage house on site. How close is that carriage house to the property line? Do you know?
Trevor, can you bring up the area map? I think area maps aren't entirely definitive because they're set from a certain perspective. The area map, I think it was number 2. Keep in mind, that's an accessory structure. An accessory structure is allowed to be within 5 feet of lot line. Not that one, the area.
Which
Assessor's
says,
map.
yep.
Can you blow
Okay.
that up? You can see that, you can actually see the relationship of the existing house to both the principal dwelling on Watertown Street as well as the carriage house in the back. Carriage house is, I can't, I'll go with what the owner says it is, but it's basically an accessory structure. And as
Okay.
you can see,
Oh.
the relationship to the main house is significantly greater.
Okay, and because you are nearby Cheesecake Brook, normally when we receive these petitions next to any wetlands, Cheesecake Brook or the Charles River, normally there will be a map which shows how close a developer can build to it. So are you building up to that line, or do you have room to spare, or?
And I will defer to Mr. Rockwood. He's the one that handled all of that part of the project. John, are you still here with us?
Yes, I am. Basically, under the Wetlands Protection Act, we have 5 different resource areas. We have land underwater, we have the bank, which is the retaining wall along the brook. There is no bordering vegetated wetland on the property. There is bordering land subject to flooding, which is the 100-year floodplain. And there is a 100 and 200-foot riverfront area off of Cheesecake Brook. The 4-unit project was permitted through Conservation Commission and complied with all required performance standards for work within bordering land subject to flooding, riverfront area, and the 100-foot buffer zone to the bank of Cheesecake Brook. So the project is compliant. There's no magic distance. It's really a matter of demonstrating that the project complies with all the performance standards. There's 3 standards for bordering land subject to flooding, and there's 7 standards for riverfront area. There's no standards for the buffer zone. And quite honestly, that mitigation area in the southern portion of the site is renaturalizing a significant area. It's almost 6,500 square feet of land will be densely planted with saplings and native shrubs.
Okay, thank you. Can you just bring up a map that shows how the 2 buildings will orient themselves in the neighborhood? Because I'm going to get to my last question, Chair. I just want to see. No, it's, I don't think it was that one.
So I don't know if we have one with the proposed building.
Okay.
This here you can see with the existing building.
Basically what I'm getting at is, because I think I found it in NewGov. It's the one from MGD dated 11/17. And basically what I'm looking at is Unit 3, that second building in the rear, is there any way you could push it further south, away from Watertown Street? Because in that point, you are not meeting the 25-foot setback requirement. And I know there's plenty of room to build Unit 3. Yeah, there it is right there. If you could move Unit 3 to the south, or is that southwest, to move it further away from Watertown Street, where you have all that room to build. And if there is no buffer area where I think that's what Mr. Rockwood said, you could move that building to the south.
I can respond to that.
And create more, hold on.
Yes.
And create more space between Unit 3 and 826, 828 Watertown Street.
Mr. Rockwood's going to respond to that, and I think Hideko Montero as well. We basically spent considerable time, that's why it took us many months to get back here, moving that building around to try to accommodate issues that you have described. But I'll leave it to my two specialists to respond.
Mr. Rock-
Basically, the pink line on the plan is the 100-year floodplain. You can't put a foundation for a building within the floodplain. So the portion of the building that's over the floodplain is supported on piers. So moving the building further away will reduce the portion of the building that actually has a foundation, and actually moving the building closer to the river complicates the riverfront area performance standard calculations, because the increase in impervious and impervious areas closer to the river than the existing impervious areas trigger mitigation. So we've balanced the development against the mitigation that's available on the property. And this is the design that works. We had the 4-unit design that worked, and this is the 3-unit design that worked. We went through 6 or 7 iterations to try to get something that balanced everything, and this was the one where the numbers worked.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Morris, Mr. Rockwood. I'm all set, Chair, for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lucas. Are there any other members of the Land Use Committee who'd like to speak right this second? And if not, I'll come back to you, because I also do see that Pam Wright, who's not on the committee, but this is her ward, and also Julia Maliki have their hands up. So I'm going to go to them if none of you have a pressing issue right this second. All right. Councillor Wright.
Could we put up the slide that showed the parking and the buildings there? And this is probably a question, yeah, that's it, from land use, from the planning department. So that's an exposed basement. Wouldn't that be called 3.5 stories and not 2.5 stories?
Ms. Berman?
Yeah, so the building is actually built into the topography of the ground, and the calculation would be based upon the existing grade and then the midpoint of the basement. So for this particular case, this counts as 2.5 stories. It's the amount of basement that's exposed in the calculation.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Oh, thank you. Councillor Maliki.
Thank you. Could we go back to maybe I think the previous slide would do, with the showing the trees. That's a good one. Okay. First concern has to do with the trees that Mr. Morris mentioned that are such a good buffer between this property and 826 Watertown Street. Particularly with the front double unit, it appears that with the foundation, the planned setback of 8-point-something feet, I presume that, well, first, would that have a basement? Would that portion of the building have a basement?
The portion on the northern side closest to the Watertown Street property would have a basement. We do have a small basement portion under the front here.
Okay, so the trees along the property line, which are the neighbors' trees, are, I forget here, their diameters are not marked on the plan that I can see. But I mean, they were decent sized, maybe 10, 12 something inch trees. And yet the foundation itself being 8 feet from the property line, and the digging that would be, excavation that would happen, you know, that's probably going to be a few feet beyond the foundation itself. I don't see how those trees are going to be protected from pretty significant root damage. Right now, the house that is there, the aerial footprint, as you look at it from above, it goes that close, but it's not actually, it's like a porch with no foundation under it. It's not as if the roots have gone up to 8 feet and then stopped. So that is one concern. And this is why I would like to see the tree permit process started ahead of coming in with the design like this, because I don't see how an arborist is going to allow that degree of excavation so close to those abutting trees. And I would like to see what the tree protection plan that an arborist comes up with would look like. So that's one concern. The other, now one of the neighbors mentioned, and we heard this when we visited the site back this summer, was about the Japanese knotweed that was introduced by bringing in fill from somewhere. And I don't believe that was really permitted. I don't know how that works, but fill was brought in with Japanese knotweed, and we were told that Mr. Rockwood was coming in every so often and sort of pulling the sprouts that he saw. But I know how hard it is to get rid of Japanese knotweed. I've tried pulling it at Dolan Pond Conservation Area and other weed pulls, and I've read plenty about it and know how it can sprout up through asphalt or put out roots that are 20, 40, whatever feet. It's a multi-year, long-term commitment to get rid of it once you have it. So I would like to see some kind of condition that, prevents the developer from just walking away from that situation, and ensures that either the developer or the condo association is obligated to, remediate, remove, stay on top of the Japanese knotweed issue, and basically indemnify the abutters from having to deal with anything that crosses over onto their property. So is there a way that could be done?
I can address that. There is an invasive species requirement as part of the order of conditions for the project under the Wetlands Protection Act. Fill material that contained seeds for Japanese knotweed was dumped on the site. It was a limited amount of fill, and I've gone out and pulled all the stems. The difficulty with Japanese knotweed is if you have an established patch of knotweed, it's a difficult thing to treat. However, these are just individual little stems growing from seeds or from small rhizome pieces in the surface soil. So there isn't an established patch of knotweed on the site. There were probably about 200 stems that I pulled this whole last summer. I was out there every 2 weeks or so. And I've been in constant contact with the Conservation Commission about that. And they were satisfied with the approach and where that has gone. With regard to the trees, there is a tree preservation plan that was included as part of the Conservation Commission filing, and that includes air spading and other certified arborist observations and whatnot during the construction activity. There's a tree protection fence. I believe that side of the building, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, actually has a foundation. The porch is on the front and the south side of the building. I believe it's a foundation along the northern face of the building
That's correct.
under existing conditions.
Well, I could see under at least some of the porch today.
Yeah, the porch goes across the entire front, but you go back behind the porch on that side.
The
and it's a
side porch,
solid-
I could see under some of the side porch.
Okay.
And I presume the Conservation Commission's tree requirements and air spading and so forth was confined to the portion of the lot that they have jurisdiction over, which I don't think would include the north side.
The entire site and part of 826 Watertown Street is in the riverfront area to Cheesecake Brook.
Okay, all
So
right.
they have jurisdiction over the entire site.
Okay, that's good to know. So they are as concerned with the tree preservation of those 826 Watertown Street trees as I am?
Yes, they are.
Okay, that is good to hear. Now about the rhizomes, the soil that the rhizomes are in, where is that going to end up when this construction is done?
What's going to happen is the entire area is actually under the area where the dumping occurred is actually under the floodplain portion of building 2 and the driveway.
Mhm.
So that area is actually being graded down significantly. So a significant amount of soil is being removed from that area. So that soil will be removed from the site because there's really no need for excess soil on the site. So all those materials will be removed from the site.
And you're going to dump it somewhere else?
Well, it will be dumped in accordance with regulations for dumping materials.
Okay, unlike bringing it to the site.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Malachy. Councillor Block.
Thank you, Chair. I'm interested in the unit size of the site plan. Can either planning or the petitioner tell me the square footage for units 1, 2, and 3?
Yes, I can do that, Councilor Block. Unit 1 is 2,444 square feet, 43 square feet, 2443. Unit 2 is 2396, and Unit 3 is 3,300. Those are the sizes.
So I'm sure you heard the comment from one of the neighbors about the size of Unit 3. I understand there are constraints that you're balancing in order to situate that unit. Councillor Lucas kind of focused on that. I'm wondering about the size of Unit 3 and whether increased side setback could be obtained with a third unit that was similar in size to Units 1 and 2. What were your discussions and calculations around that?
As you know, in the past, Land Use Committee, both this one and prior committees have been presented with the alternative to by right developments and special permits. There was a period of time where there was this particular emphasis on providing smaller units, relatively speaking, to the size of those houses that are built across the city by right. We've attempted to balance that here. That's why we have 2 of the units less than 2,500 square feet, which is not excessive. And the 3,300 square feet is basically necessary to try to make the project work financially, because as anyone who knows real estate development the value is based on dollars per square foot. Sale prices per square foot. So that's one reason why that unit is larger.
Well, Mr. Morris, you've brought up the financial viability of this project. Are you telling us that it's not viable if Unit 3 is more like 2,400 square feet instead of 3,300?
Sorry, could you speak up, Council Block, please?
What I was asking is this project not viable if Unit 3 is similar size to Units 1 and 2? Is that is that your statement?
No, that's not my statement. And I would be irresponsible to make a statement like that about the projected sale prices with any certainty, given the uncertainty of the climate. We can go all through the city and we can see projects, both special permit and otherwise, that have been not built because of the economic climate, whether it's increasing construction materials or other costs. This owner is trying to do the best he can to balance the conditions that he is presented with, the concerns of the neighbors, and the viability of the project. We think, and actually there was a period of time, and I know I'm dating myself, when I stood at the same podium and ran these meetings, that finances were not taken into consideration at all. Now we find it regularly, especially with the major projects throughout the city. I know you are familiar with those, where they're constantly coming back to reevaluate because they're finding, oh, we can't rent office space anymore, so we've got to make them housing. This has always been, the Land Use Committee has always been a venue in which you look at land use planning. I think the Planning Department's memorandum and our efforts we've presented you tonight, this is a good land planning project. Well planned, given the challenges imposed by the conservation requirements as well as the needs of the neighbors and other considerations. This is the best that we have. We put our best foot forward here, Councilor Block.
So just to clarify, so is one of the reliefs you're asking for the side setback for Unit 3?
We're only decreasing side setback because single-family attached dwellings, somewhat abnormally, require a 25-foot setback all around. As I told you, that requirement dates back to 1965, when the FAR allowed for attached dwellings was 0.75. A lot of the dimensional controls have changed, but that has not. And what you've seen over the years is an evolution from the original prototype of attached dwellings, which required at least 4 units in a row and no more than 8. Over the time, that model has broken up those 4-unit linear projects into first 3-unit. Now it's 2 units. Now you see attached dwelling units essentially mirroring the neighborhoods in which they're located. They're located in multi-residence 1 districts, which allows single and 2-family homes by right. And therefore, the 2-unit module has become the preferred model for attached dwellings in this day and age.
So just bear with me. The side setback, the minimum side setback currently is how much, Mr. Morris?
The by right setback has been stated is 7.5 feet for old lots. This is an old lot. The new setback is 10 feet, but this is not a new lot, so it's not required. But the setbacks for attached dwellings, as I said, that setback requirement has been around for decades. It has been, I can tell you from personal experience, it has often been waived because of the need to configure more buildings on attached dwelling projects than previously provided.
Thank you, Chair. I'm done.
Thank you, Councilor Block. I'm just going to mention that I'm really glad we don't have 5 or 6 agenda items on tonight, because we've been on this one for over an hour. And if we had 6 items, that would mean we were going to be here for over 6 hours. So let's think about how to be concise and wrap this up. Councilor Leary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm sensitive to what I've been hearing about the neighbors, and I think that also the developer has been making strides to really make this work. And I think overall, this is an appropriate location for a home here. I think it fits in with the neighborhood. My 2 comments are, one is the massing of that number 3, the larger unit. That might be an area for compromise to mitigate the massing and the impact on the neighbors there. not by like 1,000 feet or anything like that, but something that might help reduce the impact and massing on the neighbors there. And then the other thing that I think the planning department had mentioned was that there's quite a large amount of impervious surface being produced with this project, going from, let's see, it was like, there's an existing 2,738, and it's going to over 5,000 square feet of impervious surface. And you are near a sensitive brook here, and I'm wondering if there could be some improvements there. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Counselor Leary. Any other counselors like to raise points from the Land Use Committee? Okay. I don't know if there would be somebody who would like to make a motion. This is in my ward, so I'm not going to be the person to do that. I would say then someone from perhaps wards 2 or 4 might do it. Or other thoughts on how to proceed? Counselor Block.
Well, I'll take a stab at it. I'll move to hold.
There's a motion on the floor. Let's vote. Oh, Jonah Temple. Yes. Oh, that's true. I see. The timing question. Jonah Temple.
Yes, Chair. Holding is not an option tonight. You either need to approve or deny it.
We've run out of time
Yes.
for a hold. Counselor Lobovitz.
I do have so it sounds like the square footage of the proposed development is similar to the by right. Is that correct? If you add the 3 units, it's around 8,000 and the by right is 8,000. I'm a little confused about how the concerns, given the constraints and all that we've been talking about, how the concerns of the neighbors could be addressed. So one is the sunlight, blocking the sunlight. If there were a by right project and they could do it by right, would that still potentially be an issue? And I can't remember what the other one is. I know the accessory dwelling was, I guess that was a property line issue. Could somebody reiterate, other than the sunlight, the shadowing, what the concerns were of the neighbors for my own benefit?
Of the neighbors, you would like them to reiterate what their concerns were?
Just concisely, other than the shadowing issue.
I think it was proximity. It was feeling too tight. Whichever neighbor I think that was, if you would like to come back forward and clarify that quickly at the microphone so that I don't have to put words in your mouth.
Yeah, definitely I can clarify.
We can't hear you.
Okay, so I can clarify because the carriage house is set back on my property. So they face on the Parsons Street. So if you build that high and very big size, the 3rd unit, entire 3 unit there, 11 Parsons Street, gonna block all the sunlight from my property. My property is a yard. In front of the carriage house is a yard. The first line on the Parsons Street is all tall, very tall tree. So the one next to is directed by property line is 11 Parsons Street. Right now, 3 connect unit of this single family, they stack lower and lower. The section is lower and lower. I think, I suppose, just my finger is at that time when they build, they think about the lights for the property of my property. So the lower is smaller. Right now, you build the same, and the 3rd unit is larger than another 2.
I'm going to try and be more concise than.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it totally block the sunlight.
Your main issue is about shading and shadowing on your land, on your lawn. Is that correct?
Huh? Sorry?
The main issue you have is about the shadow that will be cast on your.
Yes.
Okay,
The,
thank
the
you.
shadow, all the building shadow are gonna cover
We got
all
it.
the line. And then don't have sunlight for the carriage house. Yeah.
Thank you. Now we do have a few other hands up. First, President Laredo, then Councilor Larry.
I just had a quick question for.
So does he, I
Okay.
think.
I'm sorry, do you want to go ahead, Counselor
I
Larry?
just wanted to ask if anyone's living in the carriage house.
Does anyone live in the carriage house? No. Okay.
Well, right now it's nobody live there, but it's a carriage house.
That was the question. Thank you.
Okay.
So look, I want to try to help focus our discussion a little bit here. I have to say, this reminds me of a whole bunch of other projects that we see where someone is taking a lot with constraints, in this case, wetlands and so forth, tearing down existing property, building an extra couple of units. I understand there's some incremental benefit to adding to our housing stock every time we do that, but I have to say, this again feels very forced. I think we get a very modest increase in our housing stock when we do these things, and yet we create a lot of consternation. And maybe this, frankly, is not a site where you ought to be building more. But the challenge for us is always in land use, what is the by right alternative versus what is being proposed? And when you have a by right alternative for members of the public, we have no ability to weigh in on anything. When it's a special permit, we do. So from planning, I want to understand exactly what the by right alternative is here so I can better weigh the costs and benefits of this proposal versus the by right. So could you tell us exactly what would be different if it was by right?
Ms. Berman.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you, Councilor Lato. So in terms of by right, a single family or a two family would be allowed by right. But I
Okay,
think it's
so
also
let's go with two family because that's obviously going to be somewhat larger, and
sure.
that's closer to what's being proposed.
Sure. I think it's also important to note that by right, you would be allowed to build up to 36 feet in height as well as 2.5 stories, which is exactly what is being proposed here. The proposed height is just under 36 feet for both buildings, and the stories are 2.5 stories. So in terms of that height and scale, it would be similar. As well, in terms of the FAR, you noted that the allowed FAR by right is 0.45. This particular project, the single family attached, is just slightly over that at 0.46. However, a single family attached could be as large as just about 8,000 square feet, give or take, with a 0.45 FAR.
And this is how many square feet?
This project, I believe, is just slightly over at about 8,139 square feet for all three units, so for both buildings.
So this is larger than the by right alternative.
Slightly, yes,
About
at a
100 square feet.
0.46.
All right, and the parking, is it the ability for them to park, because it does have the appearance from the side of being really a 3.5 story building. Is that because they're essentially digging down a little bit, so it's below the current grade?
Correct, yes. It's the combined with the topography, it's a basement level parking. And again, that calculation is done based upon how much of the basement itself is exposed, based on the midpoint and the existing grade. So that's a calculation done to determine
So
the
your
stories.
calculation is based on the current grade of the existing essentially vacant space right now. Is that right?
I believe so, yes. And this was something that was, calculated by our zoning code official to determine compliance, so.
Well, has our zoning code, have we looked at that carefully?
I believe so, yes. Again, this is something that we require stamp plans that are sent into us by the petitioner to ensure that the calculations, the elevations that are listed are accurate. And again, these are licensed professionals that we rely on for these calculations. So their licensure is on the line if there's anything that's
No,
inaccurate.
I appreciate that, and we do, of course, in this committee, thank you. We do rely on the professionals who put their licenses on the line, so to speak, when they certify certain things, and that's something that we accept because they are professionals who have professional obligations. I will just say, I think we need to vote this out one way or the other tonight, obviously. I'm going to abstain. I am not particularly comfortable with this. But I'm also cognizant of what the by right alternative is. It just right. This is not where we ought to be going. I think generally as a city. Again, I'm really trying to weigh the cost benefit of these changes, and I'm not seeing tremendous net benefit. But I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, President Laredo. Councilor Downs, I see your hand up. I would just like to try one thing in the meantime. Mr. Morris, I'm not seeing or hearing a lot of support for this either, so it's going to need to be your call on what you'd like to do with this. But we've heard several suggestions tonight about making the square footage of Unit 3 smaller. You have not responded to that. You have not spoken on behalf of your client. Is that something you think they might be willing to do? And what I was going to ask is, just by a nod or a shake of your head, I'd like to know whether the committee would be inclined to vote in favor of it if that rear unit was smaller. Is that something you would be interested in knowing? I'm
Always
interested in knowing that.
having more information, so I'm not going to say no to that.
We're
I
going to
have
decide this
spoken- I have
tonight,
not-
so you're going to have to make a call on whether you would like us to proceed with a vote. I would like to find out if that rear unit were to be smaller, as has been recommended, and your whole team has not picked up on saying, let us talk about that, we're willing to offer that, but I would like to find out if that would be a deciding factor for the committee members. So I'm just going to do that. Did you want to speak to that, Councilor Labovitz? Or you're raising your hand?
I
for
had
some-
another question before I weigh in on this.
Okay, sure,
you
go
don't
ahead
mind.
then, please.
What would be the consequence on the parking plan if somebody built by right? Could they have parking spaces outside of that basement or underground area? And how big would those be to cover the open space? I guess is that clear, or?
It is. I'm thinking we're really getting into very different territory than what we need to vote on tonight, which is this plan before us.
Well, that would in part affect, so that's why I'm asking.
Mr. Morris, would you like to address whether, or we could hear that from planning. Do you think your client would be interested in doing something like that? Like a by right 2 units with less parking on this site? I'm just trying to move this project
I know
along.
the client purchased this property a long time ago. I don't know what his breaking point is, and whether it's patience or financial. I don't know that. I would like to respond at least to one thing about the shadow, because if you look at the plan up on the screen, you'll see the north arrow and how it's oriented. It is oriented in a way that there will be no shadow cast by that third building on the carriage house. So to the extent that that's being taken into account in arriving at your decision, a lot of representations have been made about the potential impact. And I know you'll take those seriously, but that certainly is one to be questioned. As far as the size of the unit, I do know one thing, that if the client may very well basically figure that it's been gone on too long and he's going to build by right, in which case he'll build up to the 7.5 feet and he'll build up to the max at 8,000. That, I think that's the greater likelihood than the possibility that it could be reduced. But I don't know.
So you're very well aware, having been in this seat for many years ago, that if this is denied tonight, your client can't come back with this project and even a revised form for 2 years. I just want to put that out there too.
That's assuming that the recommendation is adopted by the council next week.
That is making that assumption. There's a risk there. Counselor Downs.
Thank you, Chair. That was my question. If we vote to deny and it gets through council, it cannot come back for 2 years. If we vote to approve and it's denied by council, it cannot come back for 2 years. That's correct, right?
Correct. Is that correct,
Okay.
Mr. Temple?
Yes, that is correct.
Yes.
That's all I really wanted. I sort of know this, and I'm sure Attorney Morris knows this, and Councilor Loretta knows this. I just wanted to make it really explicit.
Yes. We have just stated that for the record. Counselor Lopez.
One more question. I
Yes.
think that'll be my last. So if it's denied, can they come back and build by right? Or they just cannot come back for another special permit for 2 years? Is
That's my
correct?
understanding.
That is correct. The only thing that they're prohibited from doing is coming back with the same project.
Thank you.
Counselor Leary and then Lucas.
So at this point, I would be prepared to approve this based on everything I've heard, all the information, what our options are. I would consider approving it via second call if they could reduce some of the impervious surface.
Is there a question there, Council?
Well, I'm looking at you to see if that's something.
I'm trying to read. Unfortunately, I don't hear too well, so I'm gonna have to read the closed caption to.
She's saying that she would vote in favor.
I heard that part.
Subject to second call, if your client is willing to come back with a reduced amount of paved pervious surface area. That's more a comment than a question, I believe, though she was looking to see a response from you.
If he comes back with an amount of paved area, a lesser amount of paved surface area?
Yes, impervious, reduced pervious area. You got a big increase in impervious spaces with this unit. Is there a reasonable way for you to come back with some reduction in that for our next city council meeting?
Can I ask that question of one of my two consultants?
course, yes.
Hideko, are you still here? Hideko with Montero?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
You heard the question from Councilor Leary about a reduction in the paved area. You were the one who spent the most time calculating over and over again the impact of these changes. Are you able to respond to that? Is that possible? Or if it is possible, what the likely outcome would be?
Well, we have already, as you remember, we have already made many iterations by reducing walkways and other areas. And even after moving some of the piers supporting the building in the cantilever part, we were able to reduce the driveway in the same proportion, also to remove more impervious area of the lot. The way it is right now, this is the best option we could achieve. And John Rockwood remembers all this because we shared these numbers together many times. And by reducing, for example, the driveway, then the driveway doesn't work for parking. And by removing the walkways, I think that by code, and Trevor may better say this, by code, he needs certain, certain compliance with the walkways to the rear building, all that. So as far as I know, so far, this is the best option we were able to get.
I'll say as a site planner with this layout, I can't see how you could reduce it significantly enough to accomplish what Councilor Leary is asking. You need to access those the garages of Unit 3. It's going to take that amount. I don't see how that's possible, so I understand the answer. Councilor Leary, are you all set? Because I do see Katie Wewell with her hand up, and she may have something very helpful to say.
Yeah. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Leary. Ms. Wewell.
Hi, Madam Chair, this is Katie Wewell. I just wanted to raise, in addition to there only being really two options tonight, the next council meeting is December 15th. That would be quite a tight turnaround for any plan revisions, because anytime a plan is revised, it has to go through zoning review all over again just to make sure one decision doesn't impact, another portion of the site that could be subject to zoning relief. So we don't want to create any new zoning relief with any plan revisions. So I just wanted to bring that up with the very little time there is left in term for any tweaks to the site plan.
Yeah, I agree with you. We only have a week to do that and to get all those other pieces in place. So we're left with a voting it up or a voting it down. And part of that is going to be a decision by Mr. Morris about the risk he is willing to take on behalf of his client about that. Counselor Leary.
I'm still prepared to make a motion to approve based on everything I've heard this evening
Did you take a straw vote?
and with closing the public hearing.
Sure.
Take a straw.
Yes, I will take a straw vote, and if it's going in a clear direction, we'll do it all officially. This is not an official, this is a straw vote. All who would be in favor of voting yes, approving this petition, just raise your hand. That's 2. 3.
How many people would change that if in fact the size was reduced from unit 3?
Well, that's what we were trying to get at before. If the size of the third unit were reduced, would that change anybody's mind?
Yes, would change.
Yes, there's 5 or 6. Yes.
Well, here's the problem. We can't do it. We can't reduce it between now and the 15th for the reasons that Ms. Wewell said. So
Well-
then we'd be forced to basically withdraw.
I think it may depend on how much. Ms. Wewell, can you imagine that with a layout like this, but several hundred less square feet of interior space, is that something that could be done in a week? And then I'll call on you, President Laredo. Ms. Wewell? Is
Ye-
that something that could be accommodated within this plan?
I think if there were new plans to be submitted, we do have to look at the entire site all over again just to catch anything else that may have changed. Sometimes retaining walls are adjusted or added. I think staff are typically uncomfortable when there's a tight deadline that we may miss something that creates future problems down the road. But if the committee feels strongly about that, I think we're willing to try and work with the petitioner on revised plans. We would just need them very soon, like tomorrow.
We're really talking about the shrinking of the footprint, which actually reduces also the hardscape.
Yes.
I realize that just staff have to do their due diligence and look at the entirety of the plan all over again.
I appreciate your comprehensiveness. To me, this seems like something that could possibly be done, but I can't promise that. I'm not the petitioner or the architect. President Laredo.
Look, I'm not one to delay folks. I think it's important that you get answers and you get it done and you get it done quickly. But I also have to be really sensitive to our planning department staff, and we want them to do their job properly. It's December 9th. We're not going to vote on this one way or the other till December 15th. You don't have to make a decision this evening, Attorney Morrison. I suggest you don't, because you obviously need and should consult with your client carefully. I would do that if I was in your shoes. What I'd suggest, though, is if it is withdrawn and you have the opportunity between now and the first or second week of January, which is generally pretty light for this council. If you recall, land use petitions often are not very heavy in the first month or so. I realize I won't be part of this body to hear it, but you then have the opportunity to shape this in a manner that works for you economically, but also I think addresses the concerns that a number of us have raised about mass and the amount of mass in that third unit. You could take the opportunity in that time to sit down and work closely with the neighbors, explain what changes you're making. And my sense is you would be ready then early January to get this project before a new land use committee. Yes, you'd have to notice it. There's some requirements there. But my guess is if you do that and you do that carefully, you'll still have a good project. You'll meet the concerns you'll talk to the neighbors, and you'll get it done, I would hope in half an hour one evening.
I
That
hope-
would be my recommendation, but again, I'm not here next term. And if you don't want that, that's your prerogative.
I would not turn that offer down, Counselor.
I think I was trying to lead you in that direction. That gives us maybe a month without the pressure on the planning department or the zoning enforcement person to be able to, notice this, again, meet with the neighbors, tweak it if you can with the owner who you can't speak for tonight. So we're going to leave that up to you to make a request.
Does that mean I have to withdraw? I don't understand. Do I have to withdraw? How did that happen? Because Jonah has said you can't hold it and it can't be carried over.
You can't withdraw, I mean, you can't
can
hold
with-
it, but
you
you
can-
could withdraw it. You could request to withdraw without prejudice, as we did with that other project earlier tonight.
Then we have to go through the whole filing process again.
If you've done all the work, I would hope that wouldn't be very much work to do. You take everything you've done already, you submit a new site plan, you notice it, you get it done, and you get heard quickly. And I know Ms. Wewell and her team would be most cooperative in trying to get that done very quickly. I am very uncomfortable with the idea that planning's going to be running around over 3 days for a project that's coming into us on December 8th.
I'm not asking them to do that, Counselor.
Well, I'm just telling you my view. I really do not like the planning department being put in that position.
Counselor Lucas.
Yes, I don't know if we're going to vote on Counselor Leary's motion, where she had a motion to approve, but I will move to deny.
I'm willing to withdraw my motion.
Okay, Counselor Leary's motion is withdrawn. There's a motion on the floor to deny. Ms.
hold on.
Morris.
You're right, Counselor. I do have an obligation to consult with my client. I can't make decisions here on the fly, but I can see that he's getting painted into a corner.
Well,
And that withdrawal without prejudice allows him to either decide to come back and do it, or if he doesn't want to do it, he can still do by right.
yes,
So
yes.
I would say that I will discuss with him and most likely enter a request for withdrawal without prejudice.
We have a motion to deny.
Well, I'm hoping he goes away.
I don't see that he's going away.
We have two options tonight, to deny or approve. We're not going to approve it. So we have to deny it. And between now and
All right, then look,
December
do I
15th.
need to do this
Look,
in
look.
writing? Or
Mr.
can I make
Morris,
that
is it-
statement now?
Excuse me?
Can I make the request now to withdraw without,
Yes, you can do that tonight, right? now.
without doing it right? Then I ask for withdrawal without prejudice.
The petitioner has requested to withdraw without prejudice. All in favor of accepting that request, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed to that? Is anyone abstaining from that? That was unanimous. We accept your request.
Thank
Hopefully,
you very much for the time you've taken. I wish you all a happy holiday. Thank you.
good night.
Thank you very much.
Okay, final item. Number 143-25, a request to allow non-accessory parking associated dimensional waivers relative to surface parking lots and to allow retaining wall exceeding 4 feet in height at 56 Chapel Street.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Land Use Committee. For the record, my name is Catherine Brauker Adams. I'm an attorney with Schlesinger and Bookbinder, offices in Newton Highlands, here representing the petitioner. At the committee's hearing on November 25th, we offered to return tonight with a conceptual plan to remove an equivalent number of parking spaces from the petitioner's parking lot on Bridge Street and replace them with green space in contemplation of the committee's approval of the 19-stall parking lot on Chapel Street. This is an aerial plan showing the location of those stalls to be removed on the Bridge Street lot, which have highlighted in yellow. You can see 56 Chapel highlighted in blue with the Chapel Bridge campus in between. There are 20 spaces that we've identified, and we've submitted a letter to the chair formalizing this offer. We submitted an initial version of that letter to the chair yesterday, in which Chapel Bridge Park Associates, the owner of the Bridge Street lot, sought to preserve its right to restore the green space to parking if necessary to comply with zoning. After discussions today with the law and planning departments, we agreed to remove this language due to questions about the status of the Bridge Street lot, and we submitted a revised letter this afternoon. It still remains possible that future change in tenant mix could require us to resurrect those 20 spaces, and if that need arises, we'll address the appropriate mechanism for that change at the time. This slide shows the sketch plan of where the 20 stalls would be removed. The area is 5,900 square feet, which is approximately equal to the area to be paved at 56 Chapel Street. The area will be landscaped with grass and planted with approximately 5 trees or shrubs. We met with Councilors Leary and Greenberg at the site last Thursday to review this location, and I believe that they intend to stay involved as we move towards finalizing these plans. We're not envisioning this as a public destination, but rather a private space that, like the other parking areas on the Chapel Bridge campus, experiences informal use by nearby residents. The site work would be completed in tandem with the Chapel Street work, with the objective of finalizing both at the same time. I do want to quickly address an email that was sent by the owner of 35 Dalby Street today. Her property abuts 50 Chapel Street, which contains a residential home. She requested that 50 Chapel Street's retaining wall be replaced at the same time as the wall behind 56 Chapel Street is replaced. And she expressed concern about possible structural issues if only one wall is replaced. So I asked our engineers about this, and they confirmed that the new wall will be completely structurally independent from the existing wall behind 50 Chapel Street, which is not abutting our site. It's not an extension of the existing wall and won't be tied into it. If there are technical questions beyond that, I'm going to defer to our civil engineer. But on behalf of the petitioner, I want to make it very clear that the scope of the retaining wall work cannot be extended beyond our site, and we're not in a position to consider that request. Thank you for your time and attention this evening and throughout this process. We appreciate the committee's guidance.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. Before we move on, could I just ask a clarifying question about the plan we have up on the screen? It is most likely a confusion on my part. I thought the horse trade you were offering was to provide green space at 85 Bridge Street. This looks to me like it's at the corner of Adams and Silver Lake. Where is Bridge Street on this plan that we're looking at?
It's called the Bridge Street lot because Bridge Street runs, if I can show you here, along here.
You go back to the plan that just had the green and show me, and why is it called 85 Bridge?
That is the site address. Because it fronts on Bridge Street, which is,
I don't
I'm going to
see
go
on the
back to
map at
this
all.
one and show you.
I'm trying to look at the plan with the road names though and try and understand it that way.
Bridge Street is here, which you can really not see the road name, but
Yeah, you can't. That's why I'm looking at the plan that has the street names on it. That had the green part. And show me on that with your cursor, which is Bridge Street.
Bridge Street is way down the side.
Okay, so it's not on Bridge Street. It's just referred to it that way.
The parking lot is Bridge Street.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Let's hear from planning. Ms. Kemet?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me pull up my presentation. Ms. Adams, if you could stop sharing. Good evening. My name is Kat Kemet. I am Deputy Chief Planner for current planning here at City Hall. This is petition 143-25 for 56 Chapel Street. It's a special permit request to allow a non-accessory surface parking lot with several waivers. This is the third meeting for this item, with the last hearing held on November 25th. The site is currently vacant and the Chapel Bridge Park campus is located directly across the street from 56 Chapel. All of the relief here is the same as at the previous hearing for this meeting. They're seeking to construct a non-accessory 19-stall surface parking lot. And the relief here remains the same, which is to allow the parking facility to waive perimeter screening and lighting requirements and to allow a retaining wall greater than 4 feet. Criteria also remains the same, which is the 4 standard criteria listed here, as well as the criteria for retaining walls over 4 feet in height, because it does have a tall retaining wall at the rear. For updates, at the end of the last meeting on November 25th, the petitioner indicated they were open to essentially trading some of the existing parking on Bridge Street to for consideration in their request for this new parking at 56 Chapel Street. Yesterday afternoon, the petitioner shared their plan conveying a proposal to remove 20 parking stalls at 85 Bridge Street and converting it into green space. The plans for 56 Chapel will remain the same. They have since revised the letter as of this afternoon, which we heard about from Ms. Adams. So we are basing our response here on that latest letter that we received this afternoon. Our analysis here remains the same as in previous iterations of the project. While the green space is a welcome improvement for the neighborhood, the site already has sufficient parking for the needs of the current tenants of Chapel Bridge Park. I also do want to note that 85 Bridge Street, which is the site that they are proposing to remove parking from, has both a variance and a special permit on the site. We took a look at it this afternoon with the chief zoning code official. I believe that removing the parking in the way they're proposing here from Bridge Street doesn't appear to conflict with the variance or the special permit. They are pretty general, but due to the lateness of getting these materials, we weren't able to review the changes with the commissioner, who ultimately would be able to make the final determination on if those changes are consistent with the special permit. So happy to bring up any plan materials relative to that. Thank you.
Ms. Kemet, because you were not able to do that final review or discussion with the commissioner, would you be advising us not to vote on this tonight?
I'll defer to Jonah Temple on this. I think as long as it is reviewed prior to building permit, that is probably sufficient, but just
So that could be
give us a lot of time to really look into all the details.
Mr. Temple?
Yeah, I have no issue with you voting on this tonight if everybody is comfortable with it. There will be time between now and the 15th for me to take a closer look at it with the Commissioner of Inspectional Services. And as Kat said, it looks like on its face it won't be an issue.
Okay, that gives me a little bit of assurance. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak to this? Yes? Ms. Sidhova?
Yeah, hi. We're residents of 35 Dolby Street. This is Jason Snyder, husband of Maria Sitnova. Our properties are adjacent to a property on the retaining wall, and the retaining wall currently spans multiple properties. And I think I heard someone attest that the engineers are saying that they're structurally independent. That's visibly untrue. They're obviously part of one system, and we're concerned with the structural integrity of replacing one half of the wall and leaving the other half intact. So I guess we're requesting either at least a site assessment or a site visit with us, as well as any engineering plans that might assert that there are 2 separate walls that can be replaced independently.
Yes, the petitioner's attorney said that this had been evaluated by an engineer. Ms. Adams, would you like to talk about that a little bit more?
Sure. It was not only evaluated by an engineer, but it was designed by structural engineers, and it has been reviewed by the Newton Engineering Department extensively with their review of our application. If there are specific questions, I defer to Matt Broussard, who's our civil engineer, but aside from whether it's 1 wall or 2 walls, I haven't really heard a specific question. And he has opined that it is a separate engineered wall. In fact, as we discussed, a very small 6-foot portion of the existing wall will remain in place. Matt, can you address the reasons for that?
I'm sorry, can I hop in again? This is Maria. This is the other occupant at 35 Dolby. That's absolutely not true. The 6 feet are on the property of 56 Chapel. There is another 60 feet of that wall on our side. And like my husband said, I'm very dubious that those are not interconnected just by the look of them.
Okay, we hear your concern for sure. Maria and Jason, are you all set with that input for now?
With what input?
With speaking? With what you'd have to say? in
Yes.
the-
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to move on because I see a hand up by Erin.
Hi, sorry. I'm also a resident and owner of 35 Dolby Street, of Unit 1. We are next door neighbors to
Erin, what's your last name, please?
McInerney. Sorry, I couldn't figure out how to change it on my Zoom. So I just wanted to second the concerns that we have about this wall and make sure it's very much taken into account that it is one wall. And we would really like someone to come out and confirm that.
Okay, thank you, Erin. Ms. Adams, did you want your structural engineer, wall engineer to speak to this? Did you say someone was on the call who is qualified to talk to this question?
Yes, Matt is on the call. He can answer the question, but I want to be emphatic that the portion of the wall that is now under discussion is not abutting our property whatsoever. We have no jurisdiction or ability to walk on there and make changes to it. But Matt, I think it would be reassuring if you could say what you emailed me today about them being structurally independent.
Sure. Hi, I'm Matt Broussard from Niche Engineering. I just want to quickly stipulate that we are actually not the wall designer. We're the civil engineers for the project, but the wall has been designed by a structural engineer, McPhail Associates, and I'm basically here to interpret, the explanation of that design. So the wall that has been designed for the subject property is basically designed to take the place of the portion of the existing retaining wall that spans our lot. And the reason that there is a slight, the site plan notes that there's a segment of the existing retaining wall to remain, that is this section of the wall that was necessary to remain, that spans our property to maintain the integrity of that section of the existing retaining wall. So the new retaining wall is not connected to or structurally associated with the existing wall. So the portions that are being demolished along the back of the subject property are independent of the new wall. And that might sound a little bit confusing, but that's essentially the design intent. So the construction of the new wall and the demolition of the portions of the wall that are under our control will not affect the existing structural integrity of the existing wall to remain, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Matt. It does. And I just want to state once again for the record that the wall we're talking about is between 35 Dalby Street and the Capola's property. We are replacing the wall that's on our property.
That's right.
Third time's a charm. We hear you. Are there any other members of the public who would like to speak before we take it into the committee? Maria, your hand is still up, or is that up again, or is it just a remnant from before?
No, it's up again. Yeah. So obviously retaining walls that span multiple properties they retain both the dirt, water flow, et cetera, that can obviously span, multiple properties. So we're just asking for a structural documentation that says that the unreplaced wall is going to be intact and not impacted, as Mr. Broussard suggests, by the newly constructed wall. The documentation I've seen hasn't stipulated that, so either a visit or documentation that says our side of the property wall will not be impacted would be helpful.
Okay, Mr. Snyder, we've heard that point. Thank you. I don't see any other hands up from the public, so we are going to take it into committee. Councilor Downs, you're first.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm looking at the aerial of this in Google Maps of this area. And, I see where the Bridge Street parking lot is, and I see two other parking lots on Chapel Street and one between Chapel and Bridge. Colleagues, I can't vote for this. This is already a heat island. This will make it worse. And I'd encourage you also not to vote for this. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Downs. Any other comments from City Council Land Use Committee members? You did. Councillor Leary. And other councillors too. Councillors, Greenberg and Oliver, if you'd like to speak, I'm happy to call on you. Go ahead, Councillor Leary.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So as that has been said, Councillor Greenberg and I did do a site visit. And you may remember at the last Land Use Committee, there was some consensus that if we had created a green space that would help reduce the heat island impacts in that area, that we would have them come back to be. So that was the plan. I did respond to the Ms. Stanova at 35 Dalby Street also about her concerns about the wall. Frankly, I had thought that the whole wall was going to be, I hadn't dived deep into that the whole wall was going to be new, and that there wouldn't, are you saying now that you are leaving stretches of those telephone poles? Is that correct?
We're leaving a 6-foot portion on the edge of our site because that's what the engineers have said needs to happen for structural reasons. And no, we are not going on to other properties
Okay.
to replace walls on other people's properties.
So what I understand is that there's obviously, the engineers are doing that. The city engineer will look at that. It has to be a structurally sound wall, and that's really what I care about. I just want to make sure that's clear, that building this new wall won't cause any problems for the entire integrity of the wall.
Yes,
That's
that
true,
is,
right?
that is what my client desires as well. And
Okay, I'm sure, yes, okay. Because we were so focused on the heat island impacts that we didn't really dive into the whole wall. However, I had told the residents of 35 Dalby Street that I would be willing to do a site visit, and maybe we could do that with the city engineer and get some additional information on that, because they're obviously concerned about it. When I do have full confidence in the engineering of this wall. But I just want to make sure that the neighbors also understand that. I am certainly prepared to vote for this evening. I'm willing to condition it if it's the will of the committee on a site visit that we could do if people are uncomfortable at all. But I'm fully comfortable voting for this right now. It's still a heat island, but it's less of a heat island. And this was a compromise. It is going to be a green space that's available for the neighborhood. And I think it's an improvement. And they also removed the, whether or not they would remove this green space for additional parking at another time. And frankly, the requirements for a parking are really on us. And we have had a tendency towards reducing parking in some areas as well. So I'm interested to hear if there's other questions from members of the committee on this. And Maria has her hand up as well.
Well, before Maria, we have two other people whose hands were up first. So I'm going to go in the order in which I've seen the hands go up. Councillor Oliver.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just gonna, I'll keep it very short and sweet. This property that we're discussing on Chapel has a 3-unit special permit that the City Council has already approved. I believe it's still valid. To trade out 3 housing units for surface parking, in addition to the, I believe it was 661 parking spaces already in existence, does not seem at all in keeping with the goals of not only the City Council, but pretty much the entirety of Newton. Further, I would just like to, my understanding here is that we're not decreasing the overall amount of paved surface with the quote unquote horse trading effort that is underway. I believe it'll be the same. just in different locations. But it does seem to me that this is a pretty straightforward no, because it will be my vote when this gets to city council, if it gets to city council, if it is approved tonight by the land use committee. This is just going in the wrong direction. From everything I have heard in the past 5 years of my tenure on city council, this doesn't make sense. But thank you. I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Councillor Oliver. Councillor Lucas, followed by Councillor Greenberg.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to be absolutely 100% certain I know what it is we are voting on and what is before us. The property at 56 Chapel is going to be converted to parking, surface parking, and in exchange, you're going to go to 85 Bridge and basically take the same square footage and make that green space. Is that right?
That's accurate.
Okay. And then the retaining wall. Again, this is where I'm a little confused on this one. So 56 Chapel, the rear abutter is 41 Dalby and 4345 Dalby, according to the assessor's database. Are you replacing the retaining wall at 41 and 4345?
Yes, we're replacing the retaining wall that backs up to those two Dalby Street properties. Yes.
So the entire retaining wall at 4345, even though just a little portion of it is the rear abutter.
I'm gonna pull up my plan here so that we've got the right numbers here. I don't want to speak out of turn. To the extent that the retaining wall, we mostly abut 41. Looking at this, there may be a small portion of 43, 45 that
Yep.
has retaining wall, but we're mostly, unfortunately, you can't see it as well as I can. Highlighted in red is 43 to 45. This one right up here is 41. And here's 56. Here in green is 50. And right here is 35. So the abutters are asking us to consider replacing the retaining wall up here, which is not our property. Our property is shown in blue.
Are you all, are you all set?
I was still answering
Okay.
you. Yep.
Yeah, so again, part of your property abuts 43, 45. So you're not touching any retaining, are you replacing any of the retaining wall at 43, 45, even though it is your rear abutter?
Yes. To the extent that it intersects our property, yes.
Just a small portion of 43, 45, not the entire one.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I just want to be sure. I mean, I'm just asking. So basically where I'm at with this is, and I agree with Councilors Oliver and Downs. I don't want to repeat what they said, but if we were going to do something like this, I would like to see 43, 45 replaced, because that is your rear abutter, one. And two, there should be more green space and greater than, I think, that 5,900 square feet. There should be more green space with all the excessive parking that you have in this neighborhood. So, that's not what we're voting on. I would like to see more green space and 43, 45 replaced. That's me. But overall, I agree again with Councilors Oliver and Downs. So I cannot support this special permit. Thank you.
Ms. Adams, you wanted to quickly reply to that, and then I'm going to call on Councillor Greenberg.
Yes, yes.
I'm going to
Mr. Avola, who's a representative of Chapel Bridge, has just informed me that 4345 does not have any retaining wall behind it. So where I was showing you on the plan, the little edge, it ends. So that's on me, and I'm glad that's why he's here tonight, to correct misunderstandings like that.
No part of 4345 wall is going to be touched with this proposal? No, speak into the microphone.
Doug Avola, Chapel Bridge Park. So behind 56 Chapel, the entire wall is going to be replaced, and that's behind 41. And the only portion that touches 43, 45 is going to be replaced. At that point, the wall stops, and it's just a sloped hill.
So it is going to be touched for a portion of 43, 45.
The entire portion that does abut 43, 45 will be replaced, and then it just turns to a sloped wall, sloped hill.
Got it.
And then if I just may, on the opposite side, where it abuts 50 Chapel, there will be a small section about approximately 6 to 7 feet that will remain of the existing wall. And that's to basically keep the integrity of the wall that exists behind 50 Chapel Street.
Well, I'm just going to say I appreciate Councilor Leary's offer to do a site visit with interested neighbors and with engineer. If it comes to that, I think that might be very helpful for people to, on the site, understand what we're talking about here. Councilor Greenberg, thank you for being patient.
Thank you, Chair. Although I'm very disappointed that 56 Chapel will no longer have 3 housing units, but will instead have another parking lot in an area which there is no need of another parking lot. I totally agree. But the proponents have offered a tolerable compromise here with a comparable area of green space at another location and a replacement of a retaining wall that the abutters of 56 Chapel desperately want. So, you know, this is a real struggle for me because, of course, I don't want another parking lot. But the abutting neighbors want the retaining wall done. If we don't vote this through, we will have a vacant lot with ugly fencing and an old retaining wall. So, you know, I have to bite the bullet and, you know, accept this compromise because I think green space is needed at the other end of this parking lot. And I think it will be a wonderful amenity to the neighborhood. And the retaining wall will be fixed. And I agree with Councilor Leary that a site visit would be a good idea here to make the folks at 35 Dalby comfortable with what's going to happen next door to them. So I will support this petition.
Thank you, Councilor Leary. I mean, Councilor Greenberg. Thank you, Councilor Leary, too. Any other, President Laredo?
I'll be brief. I agree with Councilors Leary and Greenberg that this is a compromise. You're getting essentially the equivalent. It's just different location. The retaining wall is getting fixed, which generally is a good thing. I would suggest, though, that we not condition this on a site visit, but rather if Councilors Leary, Greenberg, and Oliver, whomever, can go to the site between now and the 15th and make their observations. If there's a problem, certainly it would be reported back at the city council and be placed on a second call to discuss. If not, that's fine, but I would not put that as part of a council order. I don't think it makes sense, and I'm not sure how you'd facilitate that properly. With that said, I greatly appreciate the site visit offer. I think that's quite right and a good thing for ward councilors to do. Thanks.
Thanks, President Laredo. Councilor Block.
Thank you, Chair. I'm interested in this trade, the current parking area, which is going to be turned into green space. Is that permanent? What's the, I mean, would any reversion to parking space need to come back to us or the city council? How does that, you know, is that in the conditions? How do we make sure that this compromise is what we think it is?
Ms. Adams did address that. Would you
Okay.
like to
Yeah, please just,
repeat your explanation of this?
Sure. Initially, we envisioned a license or a permission to revert this green space to parking if the commissioner finds that we need it for zoning purposes. However, what came up today with the legal department and the planning department and zoning related to the status of the lot at 85 Bridge. And so we have removed our request for an automatic reversion. And the question of whose permission we need, we're deferring to a future date because that parking lot was developed pursuant not only to a variance, but a special permit. And therefore, the process for reversion would probably involve one of those bodies, but we're not clear on that, and we didn't have time to figure that out today, frankly.
But it sounds like you would most likely have to come back to somebody if you wanted to change the use of that after turning it into a little park.
We can't do it on our own. I mean, it's a building permit.
Councilor Block?
Wow, I didn't expect such an equivocating response. I'm sitting here thinking to propose a zoning change for this. Is this a separate parcel? Is this a legal parcel that we're talking about, or is this just a portion of a larger parcel that is currently used for parking?
It is a portion of 85 Bridge, which is used for parking, which we are offering to take the parking out of.
Seems to me there ought to be some solution to this. There ought to be some way to designate this portion for park use, and that a future change in that land use would require return to the city council for approval. I mean, I'm not sure what that sequence should be. I don't think that this parcel, this parking parcel, 85 Bridge, needs to be subdivided in order to accomplish this. I think that subportions can be designated. This is subportion A, whatever, and that there be restrictions on the use of that. Condition on any changes that somebody wants to propose in the future. I'm really torn about this because the whole process, the whole sequence is just lousy. That we struggle to approve the special permit, which is still active, that allowed for the demolition of a single family home and the building of 3 on that parcel. And ownership changes, and I get that, and plans change. And now we're looking at something that is entirely different. I'm not opposed to land swaps, take out the parking here and put the parking there. Seems a pretty expensive way to run an operation, but that's not our job. But I want to make sure that this sticks, and that and I don't have that assurance right now. So right now I'm abstaining from this till that is resolved.
We don't have that assurance right now. Some more work needs to be looked into the previous special permit and the variances. I heard that tonight. Can I keep moving on, or do you need to respond to that right away? I'm getting a little uncomfortable with how much back and forth we're doing here, and I'm trying to move us a little bit forward, but you may have something
do
very
that.
important to say right now. And if you do, just tell me.
All I wanted to say was that the only way that this could ever go back to parking is if the commissioner makes a determination that it's needed for parking. And what we've been hearing from this committee for 6 months is that there's no way we need that parking because we have way too much parking. So It's not something we can just decide to do unilaterally.
But the commissioner has not had a chance to look at it, which is why we don't have an answer to your query tonight, Counselor Block, as I understand it. Counselor Leary, you had your hand up again, as did President Laredo. If you were ready to make a motion, I'll go to him first.
But you can go to Mark first.
President Laredo.
So, I want to be clear on a few things. We did approve a special permit, but we did not approve or disapprove the demolition of a house. And there's two different things here. Demolition of a house is subject only to the jurisdiction of the Historic Commission if it wants to impose a delay or not. Someone's free to demolish, unless Attorney Temple wants to correct me, you're free to demolish a house. The question is, what can you build in its stead? So I think they did that. It's done. Whether we approve a special permit or not, in some ways irrelevant. What I want to understand from Counselor Block, because I'm really not clear, Counselor Block, is are you asking and saying that any future change in the land that's now going to be no longer used for parking would have to come back here for a revision of the special permit?
That would make me feel a lot more comfortable voting for this, yes.
I personally think that would be appropriate. I mean, we are essentially saying, yes, you can use this land for parking if you give us back something. That's a fair trade in my mind. I would not want that fair trade, I don't want to say undermined, that's not the right word, but circumvented by a commissioner's ruling that parking somehow is necessary. I suspect that if there is further development of this site, and I understand exactly why you're choosing not to build a three-family, but rather want to keep it open space, that we would see a complete application for a rather extensive project here that would require a special permit and maybe even some kind of zone change. That's my strong suspicion. You don't have to answer the question. But I would think it's an appropriate condition to put on this that you can't just have an administrative change later on. And you'd have to come back for special permit. Seems to be reasonable to do that. I'm comfortable with that, and I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Is there anything to be further investigated about the variance that might alter that presumption or that condition that it would need to come back to the city council?
Chair, I can jump in. I'm comfortable
Thank you.
with the.
Go ahead, Mr. Temple.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with the condition as outlined by Councilor Block and President Laredo. I think that makes sense. If the committee wants to ensure that any change to that open space comes back to the city council, we can put in that condition. It's possible that it will have to come back anyway based on the terms of that variance, but I think putting in that language makes sense to be safe.
Thank you. That changes things for me a little bit too. So thank you, Councilor Block, for bringing it up. Councilor Leary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm ready to make a motion to approve based on the condition that was just described by our attorney. And I just want to make a few comments that this has been a very difficult project for us to work with. And the reason that I am voting to approve is because I'm looking at the quality of life for the neighbors. They desperately want that retaining wall replaced. That's one thing. And we've had a number of neighbors come to us requesting that. I will be doing that follow-up site visit as well. And as separate, that's not part of the condition. And the applicants have been making an attempt to also green up the Chapel Street side. And there's marked improvements there too, as well, including new EV charging stations. So I think they're making a good faith effort. And I think it will be an immediate improvement. I just don't want to have this linger on again for, months more. I want to get this done. We're not getting a house built there, at least not in the next 10 years or so. So that's my reasons for my motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Leary. I'm just going to make a few comments. I'm not really comfortable with it. I haven't been all along. I kept hoping to be persuaded. I like that you're trying to add some green space in. I like that you're trying to repair the wall. I wish, just as a good neighbor, you would repair the wall, no matter what happens here. Wish you'd just fix that wall. I didn't really like the horse trade term. I understand the land swap idea. In this area, though, I pretty much agree with Councillor Oliver. I just don't think there needs to be any more parking. It is a vast area of what is 669 parking spaces. Compromise, we do that all the time. This feels like a very big compromise to me. Councillor Greenberg mentioned she's biting the bullet. I agree that the site visit shouldn't be a condition, but I think it's a good idea to take it. I think it will help everyone understand who wants to participate in that. I do think adding in a condition that if the change of this new green space at 85 Bridge Street is to change or revert, it should come back to the city council in some way. And I just have a quick little question. You had mentioned that this new green space to replace those 9 instead of 19 parking spaces, 85 is, I think you said private, not public, but for use by the neighbors. Is that what you said?
Yes.
And how would you control that? What is private but for use by neighbors?
So a public park is an amenity for the entire city, and the intent would be to draw people into that space, which is not the intent for this space. The parking lots at the Chapel Bridge campus are not public parking lots, they're private. However, it is understood that the neighbors use that space, and that would also be the concept with this. We just aren't willing to assume the liability of devoting a space to members of the public, which we understood we were offering to create a green space in a sea of parking spaces.
How will you manage or control that? Is it not going to be fenced or gated? It's going to just be a green space, so anyone really could go there. I'm just wondering, when you say private, not public, but it's open, I just don't know how you manage that and how you get away from the liability aspect of it, if that's the main concern.
There is a fence.
I see your hand up. I'll call on you when I'm done.
There's a fence.
It will be fenced. How will people get into it?
There will be a service gate, which will be indicated service gate for landscapers to get in, and it will not be locked.
But that's how the neighbors will get into, through the service gate. That's really there for the landscapers, but the neighbors can go through that gate and enjoy this little space. Yeah, okay. I don't love it.
It's a balance we're trying to strike.
I understand. I think I'm still inclined no. President Laredo.
So I just wanted to add to the legal issue there, because there is a legal issue. There's lots of spaces that, fenced or not fenced, are theoretically accessible, but they are private spaces. I'm hearing the petitioner saying, and I fully agree with that, it is a private space. I don't think they're going to have 24/7 security cameras, and if someone walks through there somehow, they're going to start calling the police. Maybe they will, I don't know. I suspect not, but they certainly don't want to turn into a public area, which would expose them to much greater liability. If I were them, I wouldn't do that. And so I think the idea is it's accessible, but it's not a public space. And there's a significant legal difference in their liability, which I'm sure they're quite cognizant of.
So if somebody does go in that space, that landscaper gate, and gets injured or bitten by a dog that's in there, they're not liable because it's not a public space?
You know, that's like a first-year tort and property question, Counselor
I should go back to
Kelly.
law school. I'm just trying to picture.
I have bad memories of my first-year property class, so I'm not going to opine on that. But I would suggest to you that there are differences between making something completely open and quote public and something that is private. There's a legal distinction, and I'm sure that Attorney Schlesinger and his team could spend lots of billable hours researching it. I suspect they don't want to, and their client doesn't probably
It's
want
open
to.
but private and not public. But anyway, that's all my questions. We do have a motion on the floor. Are there some conditions and findings we would like to be reviewing? Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Farrell.
I want to
Yeah, we
belabor
can
this,
hear you.
but two things. Do the residents where the retaining wall, the new retaining wall ends, are they reassured that their wall will not be compromised by this work? And two, why would anybody go in this park? Are you going to have little benches or chairs for somebody to read a book or anything like that? Will it just become a dog park?
not, we will consider a bench and we will work with the Ward 1 counselors on
Okay, thank you.
things like that.
But thank you. I would like to know if the neighbors where the wall, the newly constructed wall ends, they have some insurance that their wall will not be compromised by this work.
Well, hopefully by the site visit.
Yeah, the site visit.
Which will include an engineer or two. They will be able to see this and hopefully will be reassured. Okay, anyone else? Ms. Kemet, let's go back to you.
Madam Chair,
Oh.
do we need to close the public hearing?
We hear the findings and conditions? Oh, okay. Motion to close the public hearing?
Yeah, motion to close the public hearing. I thought I had made that.
I'm just hoping that we'll have some kind of a straw poll before any final vote. And now I'm going to,
I wasn't going to do that. We were going to vote. Would you like me to take a straw vote instead?
that would be my preference.
Okay. We're going to close the public hearing, which is what we're going to do first. Then we are going to do findings and conditions, and we'll take a straw vote, and you can get an indication of where things will go in committee. Motion to close the public hearing?
Yes, motion to close the public hearing.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Is Councilor Downs still here? No, okay. Ms. Kemet?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me pull up the findings and conditions. So for findings, we have one, the site is an appropriate location for the parking facility with the relief discussed because the area already features a significant amount of parking and additional parking would not be out of context. The parking facility as designed will not adversely affect the neighborhood because the landscaping will include plantings to mitigate the impact of new paving. The facility will not create a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians because the curb cut will provide adequate access and sight lines for those navigating the site. Access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved. And for the retaining wall, the lot presents challenging topography, which limits the use of the property, such that it could not be improved without the implementation of the retaining wall. The retaining wall will not adversely impact adjacent property, the neighborhood, or the public because other properties nearby also have retaining walls. And the proposed walls and wall system over 4 feet in height is the minimum structure necessary to allow a property to be reasonably utilized due to the slope topography of the site. And for conditions, we have the standard plan referencing. So that's including the civil plans, the landscape plans for 56 Chapel and for 85 Bridge Street, which we added in, and our standard building permit conditions. This will be reviewed by engineering because it does have the retaining wall there, and we will require a final landscape plan and standard occupancy conditions as well. And the petition will need to maintain all landscaping consistent with the special permit. And we also discussed another condition about what happens if that green space on 85 Bridge Street is removed. So that I haven't added that in yet, but I can work with law to make sure that we have that language correct for full council. And that concludes the draft council order.
Great, thank you. We will take a straw vote. Who would be in favor of approving this motion according to the conditions that Ms. Kemet just said? 1, 2, 3, 4. And who would be opposed? 2. Who would abstain? Wait, that's not right. We're missing 2 people that way. Would you like to vote? It's just a straw vote. It's not a real vote. Would you tend to be in favor or opposed? Okay. That's the straw vote. So, Councillor Downs is no longer here. She told us she would vote against it, but she's not here, so she doesn't get to vote.
So that would be a straw vote of 5-3 in favor, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Just for you to understand. So we'll go ahead and vote. Roll call.
Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Downs, Counselor Farrell,
Aye.
Counselor Kelly,
No.
Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lobovitz,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas,
No.
President Laredo.
Aye.
So the motion passes with 5 yeas and 2 nays and 1 absent.
Here we go. As I said at the beginning of the meeting, this is our final Land Use Committee meeting of the City Council of this term. Before we leave, I really want to thank 3 of our members who are not returning and for all of their participation and input. Councillor Downs, who's not here, to hear me thank her for being here. Councillor Lobovitz, who will be retiring, who's been such a helpful, nice member of this committee, and Councillor Laredo, who we still be seeing a lot of, but he's not going to be here. So thank the
I
3
can
of you.
assure you I will not be attending land use meetings for the first time in 14 years.
I'm going to have a direct view to you as you leave your office late at night. Come on in. So thank the 3 of you very much. We really appreciate your being your colleagues, and your input has been really helpful. So thank
Can
you.
I take a moment of privilege to thank the chair and the vice chair for their work this term? You are new leaders of this committee. I personally think the 2 of you collectively have done really a terrific job listening, leading us, very even-handed and contentious public discussions. I think you both deserve a lot of credit for that. So I just want to acknowledge that publicly and thank both of you.
Thanks, you appointed us. So unless there are any more kudos to go around, we are adjourned for the night. See you all in 2026. We'll see some of you next week.